But we're going to move straight into a little bit of a practical application of what Andy was talking about. And we put together just a panel, a selection of people that we would love to just have share with us a little bit about what does it actually look like then to partner with God in their particular business, in their sector. How do they hear from God? How do they make some of those decisions? So just some of the practical things around that. And we mentioned right at the beginning this morning that we have a diversity of sectors, diversity of people represented here. And we can just look at this panel and see some of just some of that diversity that is represented here. So first of all, we've got Clive. Clive is representing, as a business leadership and a multinational company based in Durban. He was based in Cape Town for a bit. And I've also known Clive as part of our church leadership team and ministry team a couple of years ago when he was actually based down in Cape Town. And we'll hear more from Clive in a moment. Then we got Jackie, and it's wonderful to have Jackie who's able to join us. Jackie is in media and also now a little bit more in tourism and travel. But really her family as well, her husband, who's not here right now, they're in business together. And together with her family as well, they've had a significant impact in shaping the media landscape in South Africa through the Joy magazine and Joy Travel that they do. But Jackie's also been involved in the media landscape as well, so we're going to engage with her in a little bit. Colin has been traditionally a little bit more in the NGO sector. He currently does a lot of training, so he's done humanitarian aid relief work, but now really focusing more on training, and he gets to go into the most amazing places through his work, and we'll hear from him in a moment as well, what that looks like. Chris is here from the USA, and Chris is, as we heard a little bit from Andy earlier, well, he's been in financial accounting and is now, had transitions in business where he's given up a lot, taken on new things, had changing roles, and we're going to ask him a little bit more about what that's looked like and how he's heard from God in those contexts. So first of all, can we just welcome them, because they're awesome people. And when you hear even just these introductions, don't you just think, isn't this just amazing ways to glorify God through what they do? So first of all, we just want to say that to you guys. Just the things that you're doing are just incredible ways to glorify God. So well done for what you're doing. I want to start off with Clive. And I'm really interested to know from him. So the main question I've got for him, first of all, is, being at this level of leadership in a business, what does partnering with God look like for you? Like, just practically, if we use this language, we use these terms, what does it actually look like in your role, in your business? Maybe you can just give us some idea of what that looks like to you.
Thanks, Ben. So the company I'm with is it's a multinational. We are headquartered in Denmark, owned and listed on the Danish Stock Exchange. And we have manufacturing in 7 different countries around the world. And my role is to run South Africa. I have a fairly large area that I'm responsible for in terms of a sales area. So I do everything south of the Mediterranean pretty much, the whole of Africa, and then everything east to New Zealand. So I was even in Andy's part of the world a couple of months ago. Partnering with God, for me, I see it very much on 2 different levels. One is as a leader of a South African business, and the second is as an influencer to 7 nations around the world, because I sit with the other CEOs in global meetings and global strategy discussions, and in a very practical way, I do know that what I say and what I do impacts and can impact them in their own countries. So, for me, partnering with God, I guess it's everything that Annie said this morning. It's about a journey that I love to walk with my father. Sorry, I cry often. But I know God is a loving dad. I have 2 sons myself. And as much as I want to see my sons succeed and love what they do. I know God wants to see what I do succeed, and He loves to see me loving what I do. So when I'm in business, and I mean I'm constantly aware of how very little I know and how very little I can actually control, although I run the business, I'm constantly partnering with Him because He knows it all. And He's got the ideas, He's got the good. So whenever there's a question in a meeting or somebody walks into my office with something, it's like, whoa, God, quickly give me something here, you know. Yeah, He does. He gives me insights and stuff that and it's exactly what Andy said earlier. It's often a thought. It's something very subtle, very quiet. And when I hear those things, I think that it's probably Him. So I respond on them, and I see Him change things all the time. And then also, just in terms of the atmosphere, I can change. I know that when I walk into the office, I can shift an entire atmosphere by knowing that I carry His favor, His grace for everybody who I have the privilege of leading, and I can actually bring hope into their space as well, whatever they're dealing with. And I have had opportunities of guys come into my office, and I prayed with them, and that sort of take off the boss hat and put on the friend hat, and I can be one person. I don't have to be two different people.
Isn't it awesome just to catch some of his passion? Just hold on to the mic for a little bit longer. I know he wants to get rid of it, but yeah, I'm just enjoying that moment. It's okay to get emotional even about the work that we do and how we get to partner with God. It's a beautiful thing. Clive, I mentioned as well that you've been really involved in church life and ministry, and I think this is quite something so unique. I mean, Clive's really got a full-on work job. In fact, when I first met him as well, he was studying an MBA here. Well, you were part of it or just finished off, but Clive is a graduate from the UCT Graduate School of Business right here as well. So he's been full on in terms of his calling to the business world, and yet, like when they joined our church, like they just got stuck in, without us, like wanting to demand that or without seeking anything, but they just came and they just wanted to support us and to bless and to be there. And I've seen that even as they've moved back to Durban, and incredible involvement in the local church as well. Do you want to just share with us a little bit, like how do you balance those things? How do you see your involvement in terms of a local church and business calling?
Yeah, I mean, I think you keep saying the they he's referring to his me, my beautiful wife, Catherine. She was here at the meet and greet last night. She is an incredible lady. We've been married 28 years. And yeah, I think even with the MBA, with my work, with even the leadership things we've done in church, it's always been about us, and it's about her supporting me. Even when I was thinking about studying, she was 150% behind me because it was a thing that we did together. So although she'll never call herself my business partner, she truly is, because she is there. She's my wise counsel. She's my support. She takes a strain with me. And so when it carries over into a church environment and church context, it's not something that I'm on my own mission. She, I think Andy said earlier again, your spouse is the one who can speak they know you the best. They speak the truth to you. If they don't, well, then maybe you should just have some reflection yourself and understand why. But they do, and they keep you grounded. And I think the thing with me in business and church is that it's not about being two different people. It's about, I don't want to be two different personas. I don't want to be two different, I've got a leadership role and a gifting for that, but and how I do it seamlessly between one and the other, it's all the same. And when you walk in something that God has given you, and you realize that it's not about your own earthly strength and your own earthly ability, then it makes it a lot less stressful and tough. So yeah, I mean, I've exercised leadership in church, support in church in exactly the same way that I did at work. I think for me, the biggest challenge actually in church leadership is not to disqualify yourself from something that is often put on you as a business leader and therefore has no place in church. Because I think that disqualifies people from bringing a wonderful leadership and gifting into a church environment, because you think, well, that's for the secular world out there. And that is actually something that it's hit me a number of times, and I just reject that, because actually God's created me to do wonderful things in whatever area I work in, and whether it's leadership in church or leadership in business.
I love a key word that you said, they're seamless. And I really see that in Clive, which is amazing, because he really does leave that out, just live that out as a person. That, yeah, you just really see that coming into all the context. So thank you, Clive, for that. That's awesome. Yes, you can hand over. I'll hand over to Jackie. Jackie, I want to pick up some things and just ask you a little bit about, like, this seems to be, it's a bit of a family business, but now your husband is involved in this, and I think, and I know your mom as well, and just, you guys you just embody a passion for the media and for, really just influencing this country. And we chose the title for this conference, Activating Business Influencers, and Jackie is undoubtedly one of those people. Do you want to just share with us a little bit, like, where does this passion come from? What have you felt God speaking into this? How did that come about? And just give us some insights into that. And
sure. Well, it's always dangerous to give a woman a mic, so I'll try and keep it short. So firstly, I want to say I am very sad that I missed out on the conference when it started, and just hearing you referring to Andy's talk. Andy, I hope they recorded your talk. I need to listen to that. But with the travel business that Brendan alluded to, I got off a plane from Israel, went to a conference in Joburg, landed last night and came here. So it is a little bit hectic. I also want to just greet some of the friendly faces. One thing I love about the Christian world is that it's quite small. So I recognize a lot of faces in the audience, and it's just wonderful because it feels like family. So first of all, thank you for your kind words. By show of hands, how many of you are in a family business, if anyone? What is a family business? Well, you're in business with your family. So either your mom is your boss, or you are your mom's boss, or your father and uncle are involved together. And how many of you are entrepreneurs running your own business? Okay, so majority. So it's a unique dynamic, and you ask where passion comes from. So I certainly believe that each one of us have been given a unique gifting set, which is often linked to your passion. I knew since I was 12 years old that I was going to be involved in news journalism. I am a political journalist by study, and in fact, I graduated from UCT, so this is sort of an old stomping ground. And coincidentally, it wasn't planned that way, obviously by the Lord it was, that my mom started the Joy magazine, give or take about 13 years ago. And at the time that she started it, I think that, God led her through a series of circumstances, but at the time I was working for the BBC, and she asked me to join Joy, and I said, are you crazy? I don't want to join a family business. That's nepotism. People will think I can't get a job. And and I'm not moving back to Somerset West where I grew up, because that is where people who can't get jobs live. No offense to the Somerset Westers. The correction today, I'm married, and the only place I want to live is Somerset West. But so I was quite resistant to joining her, and then also Christian media at the time was really nowhere. And I said, I'm sorry, like, I have the opportunity to report news around the world in the BBC, and I ran Top Billing's TV show, and really, to come back to Somerset West and work for a Christian, like, home industry magazine, really. So God got hold of me. Any of you who know my mom, she is a real Christian business influence. She, just to put in perspective, Joy has, on a really conservative estimate, 250,000 readers every month. That's one of the biggest churches in South Africa. We have 350,000 readers across our digital platforms. So it's a pretty substantial audience, and that's the conservative figures. Anyway, so I'm just giving you a brief history to get to the passion side, but she said to me, look, if you want to carry on overseas and putting your talents into the world, that's great, they need you. But don't come back to South Africa and think that there's a job waiting for you. So I was like, wow, that's quite an ultimatum. And she said, you know, time's running out, the Lord's coming back, are you going to put your and she said, are you going to put your gifts into the kingdom or not? So I was like, sheesh, okay, give me an ultimatum here. Anyway, long story short, God very clearly spoke to me. Funny enough, he spoke to me in Israel because one of the things we do out of Joy magazine is we have a travel business called Joy Travel. So we take tours to Israel, to Greece, to Turkey. Most Christians don't know, just for what it's worth, that the majority of the New Testament and the 7 churches are all in Turkey. So if you ever want to go, you can come with me. Anyway, and so I was on a trip in Israel, and I was standing at the Wailing Wall, and I had such a burning passion for news media and for influencing policy. Part of my sort of career trajectory was to go to the United Nations. I'm glad I didn't end up there, but that's where I'd planned. And I remember standing at the Wailing Wall and me saying to God, you know, Lord, I'm so conflicted because I do want to put my skills into the kingdom, but I feel like I can be better salt in the world, because really does the kingdom need salt? And I felt God say to me very clearly, if you're prepared to lay down your desires at my altar, I will return every dream to you more than 100-fold. And I still said, but God, you gave me the dream for news media. You gave me the dream for influencing policy and politics. And God said, lay it down. And so I started at Joy with my mom about 12 years ago, and we built up the magazines. We've got an English and an Afrikaans one as well. And a family business is challenging because, there are various dynamics. However, it's very godly, it's very biblical to transfer skills to the next generation and to have that culture and that influence come through. So it's circumstantial, although God's in control, that now most of our family are actually involved in the ministry and in the business. My husband, you've been married for 28 years. I've been married for 2. So, and my husband was our biggest advertiser in the magazine. He was the general manager of a massive Christian publishing company. And I waited for many years to meet the right person, because when you are in business and you are passionate, your ministry and your business get very intertwined, because it is ministry marketplace. It's marketplace ministry. And we're extremely passionate about the magazine. I'm extremely passionate about the travel. We take about 21 trips a year all over the world, and I lead a lot of those. So to find someone who could come alongside you it's not easy. And so, it's wonderful, because he's come into the business now, and working together also does have its challenges, because, to be a submissive wife but also to have your own business is quite challenging. And the funny thing, when my husband came into the business, I said, love, let's just get one thing straight. You oversee Joy and the magazines. Travel is my baby. So we just don't cross that line. So you can tell me what to do at home, but don't tell me in business. So that's been a journey to navigate. But when you are called to a cause and a passion, it comes through and it sustains you through good times, through bad times, through persevering, through pioneering. So that passion really has been inside of me for many years, since a young girl. But as you work in your gifting that God's given you, that passion also grows.
So good, yeah. One of the things when we were, just leading up to this conference and in promoting it, had quite a few people saying, will there be any women at this conference? Is it just for business men, or what is it? And maybe it's what people are used to, or not sure. And confidently I said, yes, there will be plenty. And it just turns out that actually that's exactly what it is, which is, I think, something also quite unique but wonderful. There are a lot of couples represented here as well, which is also pretty unique and really exciting to hear. But Jackie, I mean, for you, you've touched on a couple of things, but especially as a woman in the business world, and also, for many of that, for much of that time, also even as a single woman, could you give maybe some encouragement, some pointers to a lot of the women in this audience? Anything that you'd like to add on that?
Well, that's a great question. I feel very strongly that women do have a wonderful role and influence to play, a flavor and a fragrance to bring into the church, into the business world. And you really do have to feel called to what you're doing, because as a woman in business, it is not easy. There are a lot of hidden or intangible barriers that you face. I'll give you a brief example. With the travel business, working in the Middle East, that's a very patriarchal setup. And when I need to sit and negotiate rates with hotels and negotiate packages and prices, sometimes, well, certainly in the early days, I felt that there was this hidden barrier of they're not taking me seriously because I'm a woman. But what I want to encourage everyone here is excellence goes before you as a standard that opens doors for you. To have the favor of God on your life, which each one of us has access to that favor, is one thing. But you need to also be responsible with that favor, so you need to operate with excellence. And that speaks for itself. So that has broken down a lot of barriers. And it's interesting because today, 10 years on running those trips into Israel, the reason I was late this morning is my Israeli agent flew out to see me to speak about all the trips for next year. So they come to me now, and my tour guides always laugh and say to me, our agents are very scared of you. I said, why are they scared of me? They said, no, they know you're a serious business person. And I just laugh, because I think in that context, they don't expect to take women seriously. So I honor and I champion men who give women an opportunity, who support them. Even my husband, it's not easy being married to a strong woman. Some of the guys here, he's laughing because he's in a business group with us in Somerset West, so he knows the dynamic. And it's not easy, but in business, as husbands as well, giving your wife and giving women the opportunity to flourish can only be a blessing to you. It's not competition. So, my greatest thing... So my greatest thing to leave as a parting advice is to operate with excellence, because that will give you so many open doors and so much influence into people's lives.
Well, one of the things I just want to leave as a parting shot, maybe a takeaway from this, but how about we all go with Jackie on one of those trips next time? We can do heaven in business, on the sea, in the Mediterranean. We can do a cruise. Andy, you coming up for that? We can do that. Yeah, so this time next year, book your diaries. I will. And because I operate with excellence, Alma will tell you the tours are top level tours. Awesome. No, we love it. Thank you, Jackie. All right, moving on to Colin. So, completely different sphere of work that Colin is influencing. Now, we can't possibly have time to go into all the incredible stories that Colin has been involved in through his work. But, what I want to focus on is that his work, his humanitarian aid work, and the passion that he's had for people and that, for especially the poor, the needy, the dispossessed, so many people who are just in desperate need of help, of assistance. He's had opportunity to go into many places where tourists can't even go. So places like Sudan, South Sudan, Darfur, Uganda, he's been in Haiti, and anyway, many places of the world. I'm not even going to try and remember them all. But some of those places you can't even get a tourist visa to go into. It's almost impossible to even do business or to get into these places. So that excites me, when he's been able to see like some inroad that God would get for him. He's seen incredible spiritual awakening and opportunity also in northeast Uganda amongst a previously unreached people group called the Karamojong. I would like you just to pick up, one or two stories. Just tell us how that happened. Like, you were there for work in northeast Uganda. How did what's exploded into how many churches? 10, 12 churches? Hundreds, thousands of people who've been impacted by the gospel, healings, signs and wonders, miracles, amongst that's why I say previously unreached people group. You want us to share a little bit about that?
I did ask Brendan for an easy question. I'm just aware more and more of how God uses our work as a vehicle to get us into places where we could not previously access. And it could, certainly my testimony is that so much of it has only been by God's favor and his supernatural opening of doors into places that actually I'm not qualified to get to. And so Andy was talking about how favor goes before us, but yeah, we just know we do carry favor. And so we can expect to operate on that platform of favor. So, but yeah, my humanitarian aid work started there in Uganda in 2004. And yeah, people had actually, a few people had given me prophetic words about how they saw me in that nation before I had the opportunity to go. And yeah, had words that said things like, to see God opening up the heart of Africa to you. And someone even mentioned the name of the country. I see you in Uganda. And I was like wondering what that was about. So yeah, I did a master's degree here at UCT in disaster work, kind of the management of natural disasters. And that took me into kind of aid work, humanitarian aid work. But just briefly, I just felt the Lord wanted me to share, like, so between my finishing my master's degree at UCT, so I then had 2 years of chronic fatigue where I did nothing. So all my kind of colleagues had advanced rapidly into work, but I was taken out and I did like nothing for 2 years. But during that time, the Lord just kind of gave me fresh passion to see churches planted in this continent and to travel and to, yeah, just to use my work for his glory. So it was like 2 years after that, yeah, I got an opportunity. My strength was coming back again, and had the opportunity to go to this country to operate, to kind of to work with a humanitarian aid project during the war, civil war up there. So we built water and sanitation systems, and we did psychosocial counseling for children who'd been traumatized through war, children who'd been kidnapped and then had escaped, and so we were counseling them and rehabilitating them. So just the Lord, it was like a training program for me. So, but it was really when I was there that I just saw that, you know, there were churches in the town where I was based, but there were no churches in villages, in some of the isolated rural areas. So I just asked the Lord, you know, if you could arrange an opportunity for me, even to do 1 day of door-to-door evangelism out in some of these rural areas where the gospel had not yet been preached. And I'd been asked to preach at a local church there, and I spoke on, you know, God's heart for reaching people. And there was one young man in that church, and he just smiled the whole time at me, and I was like, what's this guy on? But he came up to me afterwards, and he said, Colin, I had a dream of some white people in my village last week, and he said, in the dream you and some of your colleagues were preaching the gospel in my village, and I recognize you from the dream that God gave me. And he said, on that basis, I invite you and your colleagues to come and preach the gospel in my village. So we then went a couple of weeks later. So we learned local Karamojong worship songs. So yeah, we don't know what they meant. We just learned the words. Yeah, apparently it was all good. It was all glorifying to Jesus. So we just learned songs in this funny language. And yeah, so we went, and this young man lived in a village of 35,000 people. Only he and his sister were believers. And other churches had apparently tried to get into this village, but nothing had ever worked. So we went in, my colleagues and I, and yeah, stood underneath a tree with a microphone, gathered about 200 people, and yeah, preached the gospel, and we saw about 75 people saved. So we realized it was like the start of the village had never seen anything like it before. So we went in the next week, another 70 or so. Following week, another 25. So within 3 weeks, we had a church of over 150 people who suddenly needed pastoring. So, yeah, I realized that we achieve more by accident than we do on purpose. And we achieve more by God's supernatural hand coming in than we would as if we were striving ourselves. So there's many more stories, but yeah, I've just seen, I think God loves to have a lot of fun with us. And sometimes we take ourselves too seriously. And I think at times I actually have taken myself like that. And I realize that actually our Father wants to have a lot more fun with us. And if we're just open to hearing His voice and stepping out with some seemingly crazy things that He wants to do with us. So, yeah.
Colin, you've also got to partner with business now, and there's actually more than just the spiritual side of what's opening up there. There's actually a whole ministry and mission area which our church is really supporting and getting behind. And Peter Sweetman, sitting over there, is really supportive of that as well and helping you with that. But do you want to just share just how some of the businesses have come behind, organizations in terms of funding and what's opening up with providing water and things like that?
Yeah, I was on a mission trip there, I think it was roughly 2015, 2016, with Peter and Jeff over there. And I remember Jeff standing up in one of these village churches, and it was during a time of famine and drought. And Jeff just prophesied. And he said, I just see this valley full of vegetables. Yeah, Jeff? And I was like, this is embarrassing because there's a drought and people are really hungry. And we had people come to us after that service, and they said, can we have some money because we're hungry, we need food. And so I was like, Lord, how can that prophetic word, how can that come true here? And so it was like the following year I went to Bethel Church for the first time, 2016, to a conference there, and I was in worship, one of the worship times, and you know the way they do painting on stage. So there was a lady, a South African lady, who was painting a picture on the stage of a black African boy drinking from a tap. Just pause. So at that moment, I heard the internal audible voice of God, and He said, it's time, Colin, He said, it's time to start drilling boreholes in Uganda. So I was like, sure, Lord. If you bring along the finance, I'll start to drill boreholes. I got back here. Within 2 weeks, friends of my parents phoned me, and they said, Colin, we have some extra finance for you. Wouldn't you like to do something like a water project? Wouldn't you like to drill a borehole in Uganda? And I was like, yes. Like, the Lord had already prepared. So, so I think, so that year, in 2017, we drilled our first one. And, and then we had a company here in Cape Town who heard that we drilled our first one, and they said, we have more finance for you. Send us a proposal. We'll fund more. We'll fund another 3. So now we've drilled 4 in Uganda. And now each of those churches have the most incredible, beautiful vegetable gardens. So Jeff's word came true. So the Lord often, I just find He speaks before things happen. So Amos 3 verse 7 says, surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without first revealing His plans to His servants, the prophets, or His friends, the prophets. And I think that's just really true, just really expect Him to hear. But so we're partnering with businesses now. We've got some incredible friends in business who put money into some of these initiatives, and we're building church buildings up there, drilling more boreholes, and so we're actually just seeing the region of the Karamojong tribal area just slowly changed for God.
Just one more thing, Colin, just to do this. I couldn't miss out on this opportunity. So Colin, as we mentioned earlier, he's just come out with this book, Developing the Prophetic Culture in Your Church Community. Now you're thinking, well, how does that fit with all of these stories that he's just been sharing here as well? So maybe you can answer that. Like, what inspired you to write this off the back of, mission trips and changing the world and reaching these unreached people and prophecy and local church culture?
Yeah, prophecy, it's one of my passions. Only really, from Scotland, came here. So I've been in Cape Town about 20 years, only really found out about the spiritual gifts when I came here to Cape Town through the first church that I went to. I began to gather just a really small group of people, friends, and we just looked at various aspects of the gift of prophecy and how to hear God's voice. We had just friends, we had some business people, and we just had just fun, just discussing how we hear the voice of God. And I started off, there was a group of about 12 people. And at the same time, I began to get prophetic words about how God wanted me to write a book. This book kind of came out of meeting together as a small group of about 12 people, and each week we would take a different topic in prophecy, and then I would write up the notes. So I would brainstorm with my friends, and then I would find out, like make a note of what questions they were asking, what people really wanted to find out about. And I'll just capture that in different chapters of this book. So there's lots of books about how to hear God, but I find there's less about how to actually incorporate that into a culture within our community or within our church community. So God really laid it on my heart to write a book about how to incorporate this into a culture within our community wherever we are. So it's got a lot of testimonies from different places around the world, Uganda, Singapore, Philippines, just different places that the Lord has taken me. So
Awesome.
Is it someone's birthday today? Anyone's birthday here?
Yes.
Hmm? Your wife's birthday today.
Someone's tomorrow? Where's Ashley?
Anyone's birthday? Andre, it's your wife's birthday today. Can we give it to your wife as a gift? Yes. Yeah.
There we go. You want to give it, Cole? Awesome. All right, we'll hand it over to Chris. Another example of seamless, right? Just all of these things together. Let's not put boxes around ourselves and what we do for God. Chris, in the short time that I've known you, you are already really just inspiring me through who you are. Chris is incredibly humble, and if you're getting to know him, you'll know that he's humble, he's down to earth, he's unassuming, but there's so much depth to him as well. I'm really enjoying getting to know that about you, and also a great sense of adventure. I just see you as a great man of faith and then having a great sense of adventure. I'd like you just to share a little bit about your story. Andy mentioned something earlier about like how you had to actually, like you said, no to things. Like, just explain maybe a little bit about that process. How do you follow God and listen to him when it seems crazy or it doesn't seem to follow the logic of the world or of business? How do you give up things that are seemingly successful to follow something that God's doing in your life?
Well, I had my life so well planned out until God messed with it. It's I thought I had everything figured out, and really when he messes with it, he just messes you up with love, doesn't he? Yeah. And I actually was the first one in my family to go to college. I come from a long line of laborers, and so I went through college in just a little bit over 2 years and went into the financial services industry, went into certified public accounting, helping family-owned businesses and closely held businesses. So just help people like acquire businesses, sell them, structure deals, doing those sort of things. But the firm I was with was very small when I started with them. And then we branched out into many states and became one of the top 10 in the nation. and started many other financial services firms. So I did that for 24 years, and God started speaking to me actually before that, and started speaking to my wife before that, that I would be doing something different. And I just thought, no, I'm staying where I'm at. I'm staying put. This is what I've been shooting for. This is what I've been aiming for. And really that was where I was at in the financial services firm. We actually received our retirement when we were 55, so you could retire by then. As a partner in the company, I didn't receive my value before I was, 55. And so I had done this for 24 years, helped build the firm, and was really at a stage where it was a lot of money to stay, and it was really just working out of performance, and that's really how I was trained in my family, and that's what my family knew. So, and it felt very good. I mean, it felt like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? And God just started getting a hold of me and really leading us into something that I didn't even know what it was, but he was leading me into it. And so we really ended up with a decision to stay where we were at, or so stay with door A, stay in the path that we're at, or follow the voice of God into plan B, or door B. It's his plan A, my plan B. Follow him into something that I don't even know what I'm going for. I don't know what it looks like. And how we get there, I have no idea. So really the decision was if I would stay at my firm for a few more years till I was 55, my retirement package, in addition to my own retirement that I was putting in, just the value of the firm compensation package would be 20 to 25 million. So stay there. Nobody in my family had ever even seen $1 million before. To what it could do to provide for my family and providing for my mom and providing for my brother and just other family members, that's the thing that I knew. And God was placing something so much different on my heart, but I didn't know what it was, starting all over from ground zero, going from 3,600 employees to my wife and I, and didn't even know what that looked like. So that, but then our family was in crisis because I'm away all the time, I'm working. Our marriage needs healing, our kids need healing, relationships need healing. And so that's really the decision. Do I stay with path A or do I choose path B? So it's really not about the money, but the decision was like, well, I don't know anything different. Like, this is all I know, and to go into something I don't know. Yeah. So my journey is more like, but also knowing the love of the Father, like God just has something for us. And one day I was just sitting there praying on the couch and just praying for family-owned businesses that, God, I just love prosperity. I love seeing every family prosper. I want to see every family do traditions different, make memories different, live life different, live a legacy different, and just blessing family-owned businesses instead of just huge corporations. And just going into that, and I heard the voice, and it said, what business would you like? And I said, God, that's you. And he said, yes, I'm your father. What business would you like? What family business would you like? So I just started listing it all out, all the things that I wanted to do. Like, God, a business that makes money while I sleep. No longer a rate times an hour equals potential. And just started defining what that was. So that's part of the story. I'm not.
Wow. Thank you, God. No, that's awesome. That's really...
But it's only been 6 years now, and we still don't really know what we're doing.
Well, that's good. Something else that you guys talk about, quite a lot as well, Chris and Sheila, is just that how God is interested in all of your life, and not just like what you do, not just your business, but like your family, your marriage, your kids. I know you're going to be doing one of the workshops a little bit later that goes into that a bit more in depth, but is there anything you just want to share as an overview from that? Just on that aspect.
Yeah, one of the things we are really, I've known a life of performance. I know how to perform really well. I can try to figure out a formula for that equals financial success. But what I've really been doing for 17 years, I've been pressing into God, how did you design the garden? How did you design us to work with you, something that you would create? you would plant it, you would cause everything to grow that's good for sight and good for food. Like, how do we work in your rest? How are we supposed to do that? And so we've really been on this journey of success or failure. Sheila and I are so united in this that success or failure, we're following God, like we're putting our spiritual health first, emotional health, which means, you know what, we're accountable to people. You know, we actually look for resources, take care of ourselves physically, relationally, and then ask God to answer the financially. You know, how will He add in the meantime while we're pursuing the health of all those other areas?
Fantastic. And if you want to hear more of that story, you can join Chris and Sheila a little bit later. We'll share about the workshops. Before we have lunch, I want to ask if there's a couple of questions from the floor. I think I had a few extra questions, but you guys have actually pretty much answered them already, so we'll see. But if there's, are there one or two questions that we could field from the floor to any one of them, or just generic questions, if anyone's feeling something? Andy!
So, no, we did not start out with a lot of finances. We had some finances just because I was making a lot of money, but we also helped out so many family members buying a house, a car, you know, and we just gave a lot, so we didn't have a lot of surplus. But, you know, financially, we are in such huge financial challenges. It's just financial, but we have more than enough for today. And to learn, like, the love of God. Yeah, there's so much more than financial. But I believe in prosperity so much, like, regardless of where our finances are right now, like, I know that God is going to provide. He is so prosperous. Heaven is so prosperous. We actually have so many financial promises ahead of us, things that are in the works that are coming through, that I believe are going to come through even actually as we head into this new Jewish New Year that's starting at, you know, sundown tomorrow night. And we have so many things that are lining up for that, but they're not, you know, we don't have money in the bank today. But so has it worked out well? Yeah, it's worked out well from a standpoint of just having time with God. Yeah, having time with family.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question?
No, it wasn't easy. We actually went to Reading and purchased a house, and we could just purchase it out of cash flow because we were making so much money at the time. And we got back to where we lived in Minnesota, and I told Sheila, I said, I can't do this. Like, it'll just be our vacation home, and Sheila would travel there very often. And it was going to be a vacation home, and I just said, God, I cannot do this. I've been doing this for 24 years, and this is the only thing that I know. If this is you, you're going to have to kick me out of the nest. And the next day I went into work, and an issue presented itself that I either had to partner with something that I totally was against, something that all of my values said, no, I cannot participate with it. And they said, Chris, you're actually going to be the one that's going to lead it and communicate to the people. And I said, no, I can't do it, so I resigned. It would have been much easier to do it on my own. Now looking back at it, it's like, okay, God, when you're speaking, to step out in obedience. So it's one of the things, like, God, I have to learn to step out in obedience quicker. But it was just a big issue in my life, and it's like He just covers us. But he you know, there's so many good things that have turned good through this, and then God even mended those relationships where that issue, He actually mended the relationship then later.
That's so good. Do we have any other burning questions besides Andy? Anyone else? You can, Dad.
Brendan's feeling very nervous
I'm
right
not
now.
sure whether I can. No, maybe not. Family's very demanding, yeah. Yeah, okay, so yeah, besides being a senior leader of Encounter Church, I'm also associate professor in sports marketing at university here in Cape Town. And yeah, those are both things that God has definitely called me to as well. And it is a juggle. Sometimes it's more of a juggle than others. But you know, I think it's the same thing of like following passion, just like these guys have said as well. Being true to who God's called you to be in all of these areas, and yeah, trusting Him in that. There's a lot of steps of faith every day, all along the way, and it's always a journey to know. I made some decisions early on though, because I was working in the sports industry for a few years, and although I loved it, I just knew that the lifestyle there wasn't going to work. It wasn't for me. So especially when you're working events and you're working with athletes, you're working evenings, you're working weekends, you're working holiday times, and I knew there was more that I was called to as well. Like I couldn't even really be part of a local church at that time, like significantly, or a life group, or let alone any form of ministry. And I knew beyond that I was called to ministry. I knew that I was called to the local church as well. And so it was about figuring that out, finding that fit, and then when God actually opened the door, a bit like Colin's story where he says sometimes by accident, it's not all our plan, it's not all our strategy, we don't know the whole clear, neat path. And somehow got into the academic world, which I thought I might do for a year, 2 years, and I've stayed for 15 years now, and continued studying, and that's a whole story in itself, how God's given me favor and opened up those doors of opportunity, and have learned to balance that, and actually just looking back and saying, God, this was the perfect job for me to be able to provide flexibility for ministry as well, and to balance that calling. And even now, in the last couple of days, been talking with Andy a bit more about this, and there's still new things that God, in areas that God's calling me into, like some unique things. Sometimes you find yourself with unique opportunities to access, say, athletes or former athletes or people in a certain sector of business. And then I'm also thinking, like, from a pastoral perspective, well, these people need pastors. They're in need of God. They're in need of the gifting that I carry as well. So, you know, sometimes it'd be like, well, someone else will do that. And maybe, but what if it's me? And what if it's for such a time as this? And so to be who God's made you to be in those opportunities that open up. So good question, Dad. Thanks.
Can I just jump in there? So, yeah, obviously, as you've heard, Brendan does some things which, in his line of work, is very different to mine. But one of the things I've appreciated about him and being at the same church is that he's one of the few people, and there are some others in the room here, but yeah, who actually who said to me, "So, Colin, how can I help you achieve all your purposes in God?" And he said, "How can I help you achieve your destiny in God?" He said, I don't really even understand what you do, but how can I help you achieve even more? And yeah, he had like a list of like 5 or 6 questions that he actually asked me. We went out for coffee one day, and he's like, you know, how can I encourage you on a monthly basis? And he just asked me those questions, and I thought, like, what planet are you on? Because like pastors haven't asked me those questions before. That's not normal, but actually I'd really like it to become normal, where even though we're seemingly totally unrelated to someone else's field, that we're willing to say, how can I help you achieve what God has called you to do? And I think, one of the things I just really value is that, God brings along incredible people at the right time. Cecil at the back here, I remember when I bought my house here in Cape Town, and that's a miraculous story, but I just said, Lord, I need a builder. This place is like falling down. And Lord just provided Cecil, who's become an incredible friend as well, And actually you get to partner with people who from completely different ways of life than you would think. And the Lord actually just connects people across race groups, tribal backgrounds, you know, and actually, like, I've realized more and more that business is actually just a journey of discovering that our Father is good. You know, like, I've spent quite a lot of time in the past stressed, and yet in hindsight, our Father's good. So I just need to live with more of that realization that our Father's good all the time. Yeah, not just when things are going well, you know. But just, I think it really is a journey of just knowing our Father's love and knowing that He is good, that He's working all things together for good.
Yeah. All right, one closing short little snapshot from all of you guys. We really want to see this conference as imparting hope for this nation at a time when we really need it, especially in the business world. We really need hope right now. Anything that gives you hope for South Africa in your particular sector or area that you see right now? Big question.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I actually see leadership as our role is we've got to be purveyors of hope all the time, and yeah, I mean, I've seen incredibly difficult times. We're very strongly invested in the construction sector. You may have been tracking it. It's the worst confidence in 34 years. So for all 34-year-olds, it's the worst in your lifetime. However, God has still got a hand on this country, and He's still got. Despite that, we have had the best half year ever in the history of our company, and yeah, that's actually not because of my doing, but actually His favor. So if you partner with Him, as has already been said, His abundance is huge, and yeah, it's just actually for me the journey is not when you live in a place of knowing that He's a good Father, that He loves us immensely, that He only has good things for us. When stressful situations hit, and they will come, it becomes an excitement about how this thing is going to be resolved, not if it's going to be resolved. And it's like you're walking through the valley is there, it's a reality, but actually the valley is not a dead end. The view on the other side is amazing, and actually God, I always say, again, apologies to the travel agents in the room, but I say God is not a travel agent, He's a tour guide. He walks with us, He takes us to those places. He doesn't actually just tell us the itinerary and send us on our way. And I think when you walk with Him, then you can live in constant, ongoing hope every day.
Now I wish I didn't give you the mic first. I don't have such good pearls of wisdom, but for me, I would say, you know, as a Christian, the Word of God brings us life, and the Word of God brings us hope. And if we are full of the Word, we are able to retain that hope and share that hope with others, because the Word gives you that basis and that foundation, so that when times are tough, you can still speak faith, you can still live the faith, you can still know. And so even with South Africa, the conference I've just come from, they took a whole session in the conference to pray over this nation, but also to challenge the delegates to say, are you speaking hope? Are you speaking life over our leaders? Are you speaking life over your business, over the economy? Because when we speak death over the economy, how can we then ask God to bless our business? Because we're cursing it at the same time. So we need to be accountable and responsible with our words. And we need, and you know, at the end of the day, you either believe the word or you don't. And Jesus is the word. So if you have a relationship with Him, then you can trust Him. You can trust His words and His promises. And you can, when you're in that valley, you can walk knowing that God is faithful. And the Bible says that His promises in Christ are yes and amen. And so we need to speak hope over our nation and over our leaders. And for those of us in business, and particularly if you're an entrepreneur, it's a tough road to walk, because you sometimes feel like everything's on your own shoulders. And you have to make your own way. But as Chris so eloquently shared, as everyone here shared, you're not on your own. You're partnering with God in business. He is the CEO of your company. He is the chief financial officer. He is your legal advisor. He is everything to you, and He will show you the way in which you can go, that you can be prosperous, not just financially, but prosperous in every area. Because when people see God's favor in your life, that brings them hope too, because God is not a respecter of persons. He's a respecter of faith. And we can inspire faith in and hope in other people's lives when we are living in it. And that's the challenge, is to start with ourselves and be accountable to the word in our lives, and accountable to the prophecies that we've received, that we hold on to that. We hold on to His word, because that is what makes a path for us in the wilderness.
I think what gives me hope for this nation is meeting people who are so passionate about South Africa, of seeing people who choose to stay instead of go. And I get to spend time with humanitarian aid in NGOs, obviously in my sector. All over Cape Town, I do kind of mentoring and training with them. But as I go, they have, I have the opportunity to meet people who really help others, who help very, very poor people, disadvantaged people. But people I meet have also worked hard, and they've developed policies and procedures. They've learned about things that are quite difficult, how to operate in this environment from a local government perspective, how to get all the certificates in place. And they've worked hard, and I honor those people who work hard among us. But they've worked hard because God's given them a passion to reach people. So they're using hard work and policies and procedures, which are still good, in order to reach even more people. So yeah, I'm just inspired when I hear people's stories, when I see people spend many, many hours just to reach others around them. So yeah, even just to see people here in this room, this gives me hope for South Africa, the fact there are people willing to partner with God in this nation. So yeah.
So being new here, when I flew into Cape Town, the first thing is seeing the beauty, just the beauty of the landscape of the area. But once I get to meet people, it's get to see the beauty of hearts here. I really believe that God is ready to move. And I was reading Bill Johnson's book, The Way of Life, and he talks about financial prosperity in there. And he says, financial prosperity, he can't believe that, he believes financial prosperity is for everybody, but he can't believe that even the prosperity for Solomon in Solomon's day would ever exceed what God intends for the prosperity of hearts and internally. And what I see is such prosperity internally that God can just move with that. And I just am expectant for, when Jesus went into the wilderness, it says he came out filled with the Holy Spirit, the power of the Holy Spirit. So I'm just believing and expecting. I want to speak into you just the power of the Holy Spirit to move through all of you, but also to see you financially blessed and prosperous.
That's awesome. I just hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it. So can we just give a hand to these guys and thank them for that. Thank you. Thank you, Ray. Andy, can I just ask that you just click the next slide, if you can. So just before we go to lunch, I just want to give you an overview on the workshops, because after lunch, we've got 2 workshop sessions, and they're going to happen in these venues. So yeah, what we would like, if you can take your lunch, it would be better if you can find one of the places either outside or in the foyer area for now, because we just need to configure these rooms. We're going to split this into 3 venues for the afternoon sessions. So I'll just give you an overview. So in venue 1, which will be that side, so that'll be 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so in venue 1 over there, in the first session, so the first hour, we're going to have Chris and Sheila. They'll be telling a little bit more about their story, focusing on business and family. And yeah, you can read a little bit more about that in your bulletin. The second room, which is right here, it's going to be myself and John, who's come out from California as well. John's going to share some testimonies with me. We're going to look a little bit more about discovering your divine purpose, being a kingdom purposeful business, organization, and person as well. And we're going to get quite practical and even just look at defining our purpose together as well. And in venue number 3 will be, the first session will be social justice, community transformation, some of the incredible stories from Anton and Ilana. And they're going to be sharing some local stories, Cape Town. If you're in the NGO sector or have a heart for community transformation, that's a fantastic session to go to and just glean from their wisdom and their passion and the incredible things that they are seeing happen in the city. So that'll be the first hour. The second hour, venue number 1 on that side again, transformational leadership. So Karen is not here, but Mike is here. Where's Mike? And Mike and Karen are business coaches. They mentor business people and CEOs as their full-time job. It's an incredible privilege that we have him here for a free session that you can go get a taste for what he does, for what they do, and the focus of that is going to be on leadership, I guess executive leadership, but the model of Jesus in that, as far as I understand. Read more about that and go for that. This middle venue is prophetic strategy, supernatural solutions. So Colin and Judy, I don't know if Judy's here yet, 2 incredibly gifted prophetic people, also in the business place. They're going to just be sharing, unpacking that a little bit more, like what is it, the practical aspects of hearing God in your workplace and the lessons that they've learned from that, and releasing the prophetic as well. Venue number 3 will be William and Mark. So Mark is from Zimbabwe. William has operated here in South Africa and Zimbabwe and elsewhere as well. Talking a little bit more about some of the African context, but the things that burn on their heart, like for entrepreneurship, but also mentorship and raising sons in Africa. Some of the unique challenges about doing business in Africa as well. So if you're an entrepreneur, business leader, or have a passion for mentorship especially, that would be a great session for you. Okay, some tough choices to make, but you've got an hour of food and things just to mull that over and to enjoy that. So yeah, I hope you guys have all enjoyed so far. Stay for the afternoon, it's just getting better.